What is up, you guys? I have my notes here, so I'm going to be referencing them. But today I wanted to talk to you about 5 things. This is in no particular order. Let me start off by saying that. 5 things that you can do that are going to drastically level up your life. And these are things that I do in my life. And I know for a fact that every single friend that I have that is a top performer also does these things in their lives. And if they're a top performer and not doing these things, guess what? They're not really a top performer. Ouch. I hate to burst your bubble, but they're not. They're just successful in one area and they're standing on their strengths and they're not admitting to their weaknesses. So, everyone that I know in my life that's a top performer does these things, and everyone that I know in my life that are acquaintances and stuff like that does not do these things are not a top performer. And sometimes you might be blinded by one area of their success, but truly, if they're not a well-rounded successful person, they're not a successful person. They're just good at X. So, the first thing that I wrote down that came to mind was gratitude journaling. For me, journaling is something that is just like absolutely an incredibly powerful tool in my day-to-day. I make sure that I'm writing at least once a day, and sometimes it's just flowing out and I just let it. Sometimes I'll be sitting down for 20 minutes to half an hour with my journal, but I remember at the start of my journey that gratitude was something that was so like, it was such a small thing, but it literally transformed my whole life. I remember, and if you've been following me for a while, you remember these stories, but I remember when I literally struggled to name 3 things that I was grateful for, because that is how I was just really mentally in a dark place, and trying to find 3 things that I was grateful for was the first time that gratitude came into my life. And then ever since then, it literally impacted the rest of my life. Like, it was such a domino effect of just being able to clearly see those things that I had that I was grateful for in my life. And then the more that my brain was looking for those, it did take me a long time. It took me like weeks to months to be able to build up past 3. Like, for fucking weeks or months I was struggling on just 3 each day. But my dad would always ask me at the end of each day, like, what are 3 things that you're grateful for? And so after a while it started to flow to me, and now I could sit here and list off 100. If you had a few hours and I had a few hours, I could definitely do that, because my gratitude muscles are so strong that no matter what situation I'm in, and then your brain is going to start to like do these patterns on its own. So if you do this with negative stuff, you're going to notice that in every situation that you seem to find yourself in, there's always like a negative thing that's happening. And it's the same thing with positive. So for me, honestly, like, if you've been following my channel, you'll know that I was totally open with the fact that I was struggling mentally when it comes to pregnancy, because my body is such a huge thing to me. And not just like my physical egotistical body, but also the amount of connection that I get through my routine and through the exercises and the things that I do for my mental health. Being pregnant and not really knowing where my boundaries should be established like properly. So sometimes I was like cutting myself off from things and really, really upset about it, but like not actually clearing it with a professional to make sure that I, actually couldn't do those things. So I was cutting myself off of so many things that made me happy, and it was very difficult for me mentally. But then in that situation, my brain was like, well, what's good about it? And then started listing off these things, because I built my gratitude muscles before I was in that situation so strongly that when I was in that situation, it was something that came back and really kicked in. Also, for those of you who've been following me again, you'll know that this year I set the biggest amount, like, I'm literally working on my goal right now. Reading is the second thing. I set the biggest amount of goals for 2024, but also one of the biggest goals that I have too is reading. So it consumes so much of my time. I found myself like on so many phone games, passively scrolling through Instagram or Reels or Shorts or whatever the case may be, or like, those honestly are my biggest time suckers online, is just like Shorts on YouTube and Reels on Instagram. But I've replaced it with reading, and so now I have such a massive goal for reading that's where my mind goes to first, instead of like what can I do to fill my time, or how can I like waste my time. I was waiting in the waiting room today for an appointment, and I just sat there and I read like 20, 30, 40 pages out of a book, which was just so much easier. And for me right now, I'll share actually the books that I'm reading. The Art of Living is a very, very good one. This is a philosophy book. What I like about it in particular is that the pages are super short. So this, like if you read this, then you know that like the next day your next read is going to be this. So they're super short. The book is super small too. So this isn't a time consuming thing. There's not a lot of commitment that comes to that. And it's just like really good things that you can like think with. So those are very, very powerful quotes. The next book that I'm reading, and you're going to notice that these are kind of all areas. So when I get sick of one, I just kind of rotate to another one. I don't recommend doing this at the start just because your brain, like if you haven't developed your mental strength, having this many books on the go will confuse you. Theta Healing, super powerful. I am working on a course right now that I'm going to publish soon, and I'm going to be teaching, I'm going to be doing Theta Healing on people, but as well, there's just going to be like a basic course to get started with on your own of building actually these habits. So if I give you this list of 5 things and you're like, I have no idea how to implement this, I am going to be launching a course that's going to help walk you through step by step on all of these things. The next one is Ina May's Guide to Childbirth, because this was a super highly recommended one to me. The more that I read it, the more that it was actually creating fear in me. So I've kind of slowed down on this one, not gonna lie, because there's just like horror stories about the hospitals and very positive stories about their farm and their birthing center. Which is fine, but also like it's a different time. I live in a different country. And also another thing that was a super bummer for me is that I don't have this type of access to have this type of like facility. So that one was a definite mental fuck at the point that I'm at in my pregnancy, because I'm really starting to worry about labor. And then another classic one is Rich Dad Poor Dad. I already read this book, but I had a friend recommend it to me, and they asked if you read it before, and I knew where this was going, because if you read a book this month and you read the same book next month, there's going to be things that you never saw in it. And I know that that seems extreme, but it all depends on how committed you are to your growth, and this is something that might sting you. So if you think, oh no, well, if I read a book this month and then next month you think it's going to be a completely different book, you're so shook, you don't know what you're talking about, nah. I hate to break it to you, but you know why? It's because you don't grow that much. If I talked to me last month, I wouldn't be talking to the same person, because I put a lot of effort and focus into my growth. And so you should literally become a different person every single month. And if that doesn't seem crazy to you, then you're on the right path. So those are the 4 books that I'm reading right now, because my goal is to read 2 every month, and I haven't finished one for January yet. Let's not get caught up in that. Let's move on with my list. So that's what I'm reading for right now, because I'm trying to get caught up on my goal. Number 3 is a training schedule. Fitness is very, very important no matter what stage you are in your life. And throughout pregnancy, I'm not going to lie to you, I've definitely fucked my routine up. And I mean, had I have known what my limits were and been a little bit more prepared for this, I feel like I wouldn't have let it go that easily. But I was listening to everyone's bullshit mantra of follow what your body wants to do and listen to your body. And then I found myself I didn't go way off in the deep end, but I was definitely treading water up to my knees. And I was eating food I knew I shouldn't be, and I didn't have energy, and I was sleeping 13 hours a night. Anyways, it was just a train wreck, okay? I felt like I literally only lived to work for maybe a month or 2, but that was soul sucking. So a training schedule is really imperative no matter what stage you are. And if I could give myself a piece of advice, one of the many pieces of advice I'd give myself if I could redo this first trimester that I just went through, it would be For nothing, don't stop your fucking training routine, period. Like, point blank. Even if someone else wants to live in your body, welcome them, but just let them know, like, here, we do this. And if you don't want to do this, this isn't the place for you to live, bud. And then you continue on stacking your wins, because I struggled a lot with mental health in my life, and these 5 things that I'm listing off to you have literally not only helped me get out of that, but stay out of it, even when I'm going through other bullshit in life, okay? So these are very, very important. And I saw myself like slowly sliding back into it, because it's not hard to stack bad habits, just like it's not hard to stack good habits. You just have to be intentional and put your focus on it. The 4th one, this is something that I love. Like, I cannot express to you how much I love this. It's working on a specific skill. So if you pick a skill that you want to develop, I remember I used to suck at communication, and I used to be super shy. Doing a video like this was basically a near-death experience for me. And also knocking on a door and talking to a complete stranger, I think I would rather jump in front of a bus. And so I picked that skill to work on 4 years ago, of really perfecting, and I shouldn't say perfecting, but learning on another level, like maybe an intermediate level, of how to communicate my thoughts and ideas, and also talk to people without the fear of them rejecting me, because I understood that, you know, fear is a part of life, and you just have to confront it and take action in the face of fear, and that also rejection is a part of life. And honestly, if you have a good connection and relationship with the Creator, you're gonna know that really a rejection is just a redirection, and then you're not that scared of it anymore. I realized that all of the clients that rejected me and didn't want to talk to me is just because I need to show up at that exact time. Like, if they wouldn't have rejected me within the first 5 seconds of me talking to them, which I thought was completely ridiculous. Like, 5 seconds, you don't even know why I'm there. Like, you don't know anything about me. Maybe I'm a God-sent angel knocking on your doorstep, which I am, and you don't even take the time to talk to me because you're so caught up in your other bullshit. So, I mean, like, whatever, okay? But if they wouldn't have said no to me within those first 5 seconds, then guess what? I wouldn't have caught Kelly home, because she was just about to leave within the next half an hour, and I had to knock 20 doors in between that. And so it aligned with my perfect timing for me to be able to talk to the customers that are actually in my soul aligned clients. And then number 5 is set 1 to 3 non-negotiables for you. I want to start off by saying 1 to 3 because a lot of people, they buy the new shoes, and then they buy the shaker cups, they buy the gym bag, they buy the new clothes, they buy the new hair ties, they get the blender balls to go with the blender shakers, and then they get this supplement, they get the greens, they get the proteins, they get the collagen, they get the other bullshit fucking pills that they think is gonna burn their fat when really it's not. You know what? They've got to change their habits. So don't focus on all of the frilly shit, and don't focus on overdoing anything. Focus on your non-negotiables and get a skill down and get a habit down pat before all of this other stuff, okay? And don't think that you're gonna eat an elephant in one bite. And I had such a hard time with this, okay, guys? I had such a hard time, and I got this advice from so many people before, and I was literally blind to it, because I was like, you don't have the results that I want, and so I can't listen to you. And I mean, while that is valid, I have come to learn in my own divine timing that this lesson is very, very true. And that is that working on one skill and getting it in your arsenal, or working on one habit and getting it set in stone, is going to be way more valuable to you than working on 10 habits and not mastering any of them, struggling and ending up giving up. Because then guess what? What did you really win? Nothing. You just actually lost your self-confidence and your self-reliance in your ability to get something done, because you tried to do something and you failed. And I mean, don't avoid failure, but set yourself up for easy successes and build on that. And I'm not saying play it safe. Don't play it safe. But set yourself up for an easy success and then modify from there. For me, something that I struggled with literally for years was my wake-up time, okay? I was that girl that would always be setting 20 alarms every minute with a strobe light on 5 different phones, set across the room on an iPad, and you know, that was like how I was trying to wake up at 5 a.m. and I just couldn't get it down. I 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 couldn't fucking wake up at 5 a.m. and it was so frustrating. And I felt every time I woke up at like 6 or 7 a.m. that my whole day was fucked and I just needed to try again tomorrow. And what kind of attitude is that to bring into the day, right? Like, how much things do you think that you're going to get done, and how much self-confidence and self-esteem do you build at the start of the day? And especially when your brain is in that type of like state, you can't be saying those things because those things go right into your like, it just penetrates too deep, okay? And so anyways, I changed my approach. I was like, you know what? 7 o'clock is reasonable, because even if I go to bed at 11 o'clock, I still get 8 hours of sleep. Even if I go to midnight, you know, I'm still getting 7 hours of sleep, and all of these hours of sleep are reasonable times. And this only really started when I was pregnant, but like, I'm nailing my wake up time day in, day out. Like, weekday, weekend, I'm nailing my wake up time. So guess what? If I want to start to modify that, you know, for right now, I'm really going to stick to it because it really works for me. But when I get to a point of having like, you know, a little bit of an older baby, then I'm going to say, okay, maybe I need a little bit more time in the mornings. Maybe I'm going to wake up a little bit earlier. But taking a habit that I've already established for 7 o'clock and moving it to 6:50 and getting it established at 6:50 and moving it like, and you could do bigger jumps than 10 minutes, maybe moving it to 6:30 and then moving it to 6. But I mean, rather you win one thing and get that on lock than try 10 things, overwhelm yourself, give up, and then ruin your self-esteem because you are literally not ready to go from level 1 to level 10. You need to build yourself up in a way that makes sense over time, and then over time you can do crazy, incredible things. My dad has an amazing routine. Like, he does a cold shower every single day. He trains every single day. He has a coffee every single day. What